Prostitution is said to be the earliest occupation in history of mankind. In early modern Europe, prostitutes represented a wide spectrum of economic and social levels. Some prostitutes and brothel owners, such as Elizabeth Cresswell, could rise up socially because of their wealthy and powerful clients. But why women entered the sex business? Well, for a number of reasons, but the most common one was poverty. Welcome back to Binge History, where we'll be speaking today about prostitution in early modern Europe. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more content just like this one and turn on your post notifications. With all that done, let's binge history like we binge eat. Church officials in Europe worked to rehabilitate repentant prostitutes and support their dowers during the Middle Ages. Prostitution, however, was not only permitted but also regulated, licensed, and controlled by law, and it provided a significant source of public money. Across Europe, public brothels were developed in major towns. For example, the earnings were split between both the city and the university at Toulouse in France. In England, bordellos were first permitted by the bishops of Winchester and then by Parliament. A string of attempts by monarchs, queens, and other government authorities to stop individuals from engaging in the sex market characterized prostitution in early modern England. The prohibition orders had an ebb and a flow, with periods of apathy at various levels of the English government in between. Areas outside of London's authority, such as Southwark, which had developed a reputation as a center for prostitution and amusement, were integrated into the city during the early modern era. Some illegal enterprises in these places continued to operate more discreetly, while many brothels and associated businesses resurfaced in less visible parts of London, posing as other types of businesses. Because much of what we know about prostitution comes from research on poorer and less privileged people that are more possible to arrive into touch with courts and government agencies, it's impossible to generalize about their backgrounds or situations. Another nearly universal limitation imposed on prostitutes was the apparel they were permitted to wear. To distinguish themselves from clean women and avoid misunderstanding, the church mandated that prostitutes wear unique clothes, which each local government was free to choose. Prostitutes in Milan, for example, donned black cloaks, whereas prostitutes in Florence wore gloves and caps with bells. A person who discovered a prostitute dressed in anything other than their authorized attire had a legal right to strip them naked on the spot. In early modern London, there were various networks of pimps, keepers, and procurers who would prey on women. The work of procuring and keeping the women was carried out by the bawd, mostly women, while the pimp was mostly men. These men would help the bawd move around different women to other locations. For many Londoners, the prostitute was a symbol of the filth and vice of the city and inevitably associated with the poor. The reason why a woman would join this profession was mostly an economic choice, or tricked by procurers or their master. In a big immigrant city like London, job prospects were limited, especially for women, who were not allowed to become apprentices. Therefore, prostitution offered unemployed women a way to make quick money until they could find another job or ideally a husband. Wealthy people from high society were also the patrons of this industry, as captured in the famous Hogarth's A Harlot's Progress, depicting the story of a young woman, Moll Hackabout, who arrives in London from the country and becomes a prostitute and a mistress of a wealthy merchant. Therefore, for a woman whose social class was too low to marry into wealth, high-class prostitution could be a way to enjoy similar luxuries as long as she could satisfy her wealthy clients. Today, Borough Market near the Borough Station in Southwark is a popular destination for food shopping of the inhabitants and the visitors to the capital. However, few may think the area of Southwark used to be a hub for prostitution and entertainment during the early modern period. Southwark is situated between Maid Lane and Bankside, on the south bank of the Thames, across from London. The London Bridge at the time was the sole permanent bridge of the Thames, united Southwark and London. Therefore, the bridge's position most certainly contributed to the emergence of Southwark as a red light district. For centuries, the population of Southwark was diverse. At the upper echelon of the social hierarchy, a number of ecclesiastical lords, such as the bishops of Winchester, resided there. On the other hand, Southwark's independence of the stringent regulation of the City of London helped attract numerous craftsmen and merchants who wished to conduct their businesses free of the city's scrutiny. Therefore, taverns to serve the tourist trade prospered, and these in turn spurned London's first red light district. On the 13th of April in 1546, old Henry VIII eventually implemented a royal proclamation to shut down all houses of prostitution within his realm, bringing to an end Southwark's red light district. The authorities would occasionally raid such bawdy houses, some of which are moated and have high walls to repel attackers. However, the policy did not seem to have resulted in any notable diminution of prostitution. To avoid being caught, the brothel business went underground, and not just on the South Bank, but in the metropolitan area in general. Many bawds and prostitutes moved into houses that sold ale or beer as a cover. In the early modern period, Dutch trade, science, art, and military were among the most acclaimed in the world. The professionalization of the armies and the growth of standing armies meant an increase in soldiers, always prominent among the prostitutes' clients. The expansion of trade and business opportunities attracted businessmen and immigrants not only within Europe, but also from other continents. Among them included mostly young unmarried men and women, increasing both the demand for and the supply of prostitution in all cities of Holland, especially the richest of all, Amsterdam, where prostitution took place in a variety of forms. There was street prostitution. Men could have sex with a woman who has accosted them for a small fee and in the open air. Whorehouses were small brothels where clients stayed for hours or even the night. Here, the bill for food, drink, and bedding often exceeded the fee for the prostitutes. These small brothels often served as temporary homes for short-term visitors like sailors. Prostitutes could also be found in notorious inns and in the famous Spielhuizen, or playhouses offering live music, dancing, food, and drink. Since these establishments were officially not brothels, they attracted many visitors, including women, who just came to satisfy their curiosity. Although much of the sexual business was concentrated in several streets near the harbor, there was no real red light district. The brothels and streetwalkers could also be found in other sections of the city. Interestingly, although the Netherlands were a pious Protestant nation at the time, the Amsterdam city accepted prostitution seemingly without problems, and there was even a market for paintings and writings related to prostitution. Prostitution was banned in Christian beliefs, and prostitutes were not allowed to be buried in Christian cemeteries. Two influential Christian philosophers, St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas, saw prostitution as a necessary evil. St. Thomas Aquinas said, "Take away prostitutes from the world, and you will fill it with sodomy." The church categorized any sexual conduct that was not for the goal of reproduction as sodomy. However, Aquinas believed that profiting from institutions was not sinful as long as the proceeds benefited a just cause. King Edward I formally entrusted the church with the obligation of punishing sexual offenses in 1286. Although secular courts began prosecuting persons for offenses related to prostitution and the sex trade in the early modern period. Indifference characterized earlier rules as testified by partial enforcement or limitation to select sections or streets of the city where it was regulated. According to some reports, the church permitted prostitution as early as the 12th century. Regardless of which version of history is right, the fact that the clergy did nothing to openly condemn prostitution in Southwark prior to the Tudor reign is questionable. We hope you liked this video, and if you did, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Make sure you turn on the post notifications and also let us know in the comments section about your views on the prostitution in early modern Europe. Thank you for watching Binge History. Until the next time we meet, continue learning and stay healthy.